Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Life of the Lost. I'm Sam.
And I'm Megan.
And this week's episode is sponsored by Brown Lab Media. Brown Lab Media is a creative community helping to promote and create original content, personal brands, businesses, or anything media related by people of color. So if you have a chance, please feel free and check them out at brownlabmedia.com. And on to this week's episode. You want to take it?
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, this podcast is about our adoption, some of the stories, some of the adventures that we get into while we're searching for our identity. And this week we are getting into questions asked by you. And we'll start it off. I think how we'll do it is I'll ask a question and then we'll just both answer it.
Right? All right. Sounds good.
All right. Do you have two names?
Do I have two names? Yeah, I do actually have two names. The name I was given before I came to this country, my birth mom gave to me, and that was Marco Antonio Sanchez. Like a real, I don't know, like a real generic kind of like name, but I liked it. I definitely remember when I first heard about it. My mom had informed me that first thing I did was I ran downstairs to tell my doorman. Apparently I was really close with them. So yeah, and my name now is Samuel Lewis Hersher, which personally I favor the second one over the first. But how about you?
Yes, I do have two names. It is Hilda is my second name, and Megan is the name I was given when I came to this country. And I always was teased when I ever told somebody my first name is Hilda. And I guess before somebody could tease me, as I got older, I just kept saying like, my name's Hilda the hippopotamus, and which is like super weird. But I just
because I asked
like,
you before about hippopotamus, and there wasn't any character. I thought there might have been a character. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that when I heard Hilda, it just sounds like Helga, like some random like Russian like big woman cleaning. I don't know where I got this image from, but it just kind of came in, especially when people started teasing me. So then I just went in for the punch right away. I was just like, Hilda, just like Hilda the hippopotamus. I have no idea where it came from. Like a cartoon, I have no idea.
Huh. Interesting. I'm very fascinated how you associated those two things with one another. But as long
I
as
don't know.
Moving on.
Yes. Number 2, would you consider adopting?
Would I consider adopting? Yeah, I think I would consider adopting. But it wouldn't, oddly enough, it wouldn't, because I was adopted, that wouldn't be an issue with me. Like, it wouldn't be something that I would keep into account. Like, for instance, I just view adoption as just a whole new being instead of being like, some people I think might be like, oh, maybe since I was adopted, I might have like a leg up in terms of understanding how maybe an adopted person might be growing up because maybe they've been through it. But for me, I would consider adoption, but I would keep my adoption and their adoption completely separate in terms of me just being like a new parent adopting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah.
I think when I was younger, I remember just being so angry. I was like, I'm never going to adopt anybody. I would never put anybody through this. But obviously, as you get more mature and more older, you kind of understand what adoption is and the benefits of it. And so I think, I would consider adoption. And I guess I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum a little bit where I might say that I do understand a little bit more. And I wouldn't want to merge those two things together, like my adoption and their adoption, but I feel like I would be able to maybe understand certain things or certain, I guess, different levels. When you're a kid, you're kind of confused, and then when you're a teenager, you start understanding more, so maybe just be able to come in at a different angle. Yeah.
For me, I think it was reverse. When I was a kid, I understood things more. When I was a teenager, everything was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like lost my place and then full circle when I got older. But no, yeah, definitely. I definitely think that I'd find out too that, there's certain kind of maybe themes that I could use as reference points to my own life for this child.
Yeah, and I guess it really depends on what age they're adopted at, because I think me and you were adopted when we were, less than 1 year old, but then there's a whole nother world, I think, when you're put in foster care or somewhere else, and you're adopted when you're 1 to 5 to any other time.
I never knew that in Peru now you have to be like older, like they won't accept children younger than.
Really?
Yeah, you told me that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that was like in the random facts that I was looking through the other day. But
Well, because no, we were talking to a few other people about that. You remember? And they said that
okay.
you can't. They're not accepting.
Oh
children.
yeah. Now I remember why. It's because they said it was because there's a longer process to deem you. What is that called? Abandon. It's a longer process, so they want to be able to contact both the mother and the father. They want to wait a certain amount of time after that. After the first initial try to contact, I think it was like 3 or 4 months after, and then they have to wait again for the second time that they reach out to you, which is really interesting. They're just trying to give the parents, maybe they needed time to be parents, or maybe, to be able to come and grab their kid from foster care or whatever it is. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely, but I do know that a lot of parents actually think about that, because I know my mom wanted a newborn, and she was very adamant on that. So, yeah, it's just something to keep into account when you're thinking about that.
Yeah.
Side note, but anyways. Next question.
Yes. What advice would you give other adoptees?
Obviously, it's probably would be tailored depending on the person. It's definitely a situation by situation basis. I'd give advice on, depending on what they are struggling on with in life. But I guess a super generic kind of life lesson, I guess, is just try to think. This might be super cliche, but just try to think like positive about everything. You always give the positivity the benefit of the doubt, even if you're kind of unsure or kind of maybe even pessimistic about whatever it is in your life that you want to pursue or that you feel limited on by being adopted. Just to try and turn it to your best ability and just kind of be positive about it, and just understand that, there's a lot of things you didn't have control over, and that's okay. Just because you didn't have control over the certain things in your life doesn't mean that you can't, make the best of it. And, like I said, super generic, but I'd really get specific when it came to a specific adoptee that I was talking to, and hearing about their life, or that would help me give them a more accurate point of view.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I would probably just say, don't let anybody tell you how to feel. I think positive or negative. I remember growing up, a lot of people being really negative about it, and I think that really shaped how I started feeling about it initially, and I think that was where I went wrong. Well, maybe not wrong, but that's kind of where I guess my downfall a little bit is because I kept listening to other people and what they might have thought of an adoption. We talked about the word taken, and I think maybe if that's kind of what you feel in the moment, then just feel it. Just keep going with how you feel, and don't let somebody say, oh, you shouldn't say that, or oh, you should turn it around this way. Like, obviously, I always try to go towards the positive side, because that's always gonna, bring you to a better place. But I just think that you should just feel the way you want to feel.
Yeah, actually, that brings up a really cool point. I don't mean to go off topic too, but sometimes in my life, since I am adopted, and I guess it's kind of my life experience relates to this question in a sense. Whereas sometimes I had made a mistake in the past with my music career, and towards more recently, I would kind of just let it sit with me, let that feeling sit, and to the point where you're just kind of being okay with the fact that you could turn away from this at any minute, being like, well, is this even worth going on and continuing, and just being okay with having those thoughts in your head of being like, well, do I even want to keep doing this? And just finding that, because that if it's true to you, if it's true to your heart, you'll always guide you back, no matter how far you deviate in terms of oh, this is too much stress. Mm-hmm. Is this even worth it anymore? I was a completely different person when I started than where I am now, mm-hmm. but just kind of like you said, being in the moment, yeah. and letting it just dictate wherever you go, and wherever you go is okay. Yeah. It's whatever option. So it's,
yeah, I guess when you first started talking, I was like, wait, can't really decide not to be adopted anymore, but I understand what you're saying.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah, no, it definitely brought up a good point. Yeah, definitely certain things that, well, maybe I can't help but being a musician.
Yeah.
It's just in my blood.
But I guess it's just the direction, right?
Yeah, the direction of feeling, and just being accepting, like you said, of all those feelings, and letting the moment pass or not pass, and taking as much time as you might need, mm-hmm. to just feel, and mm-hmm. less kind of just pushing it down.
Yeah, under the rug.
Yeah, just throw it under the rug. Let's not worry about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. One thing you'd ask your birth mom?
One thing I'd ask my birth mom, definitely is an interesting question since my birth mom had passed away when I was about 13. So I never was able to really have a conversation with her. And my dad is, MIA. So I don't know where he is. So it's definitely an interesting question to ask me. I would say when it comes to one thing I'd ask my birth mom, just as simple as like, why did you give me up? What was the reasons? And I guess the second question is, where's my dad? Those would be like the two starter questions. I know yours might be a little bit more complex since, you've had a relationship with your mom. But yeah, those would be mine.
Yeah. I think mine would be, and this is kind of a little weird, I guess, but what is it going to take to make you happy? Because she still is alive and I feel like I can still give as much as I can. I don't remember if I told this in the podcast. I know I told you one time, is that my dad called me one time and he was sleeping. It was early in the morning. He was still in bed. He was FaceTiming me from Peru and he had a stocking cap on, those ones that go over your ears and everything, like those Peruvian ones that you can tie.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, why do you have a hat on in bed? And he just said it's because I'm really cold. And so now I'm fortunate enough right now to be able to support them in any kind of way I can. So to be able to go out and send my sister money and say, hey, go surprise mom and dad with a heater so they can have one on. Just like the other day, he was FaceTiming me and my mom was too, and they were telling me about how they were getting this cow or this ox and that they were going to go and farm and plant corn. And so it was really cool. And I was like, oh, I really, as much as I really want to be a part of that, I can't. And so what I can do right now is support them in any way I can. So I just sent some money down there and just said, this is for farming. This is for any tools. This is for any help you might need from other people. So I think that's good for me that I can do that. But and I know sometimes I might know the answer to that question is I feel like my mom might be like, well, what would make me happy is if you were down here. But since I can't, it's just like I'm trying to do the best I can.
Yeah, and I guess that's all anybody can do. Just try to do the best they can with the situation that they're in.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I know money doesn't solve everything, but what do? You know, there's two worlds.
It doesn't solve everything, but it kind of solves a bunch of things.
It helps, right?
It helps, yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt. That's the answer.
What do you say to people who feel sorry for you being adopted?
I guess, if they feel sorry, I guess I kind of just convert that feeling of maybe any kind of negative implication and just inform them that, it's okay. It was actually like a blessing in disguise and just let them know why and just kind of so they can maybe in the future, maybe not jump to conclusions, I guess, and just, but it's okay. They don't really know my life and they don't really know what adoption is because they haven't been in that situation. So, I just say thanks. But I'm actually really grateful to be here and I'm really grateful to be adopted. So yeah. What about you? Yeah,
I think my initial reaction in my head is like, what are you talking about? I feel like I always jump, I'm always want to respond emotionally. So I just kind of have to step back and just say, okay, obviously it might be my fault, right? It might be me not expressing that I was, I think when I first say I was adopted, I try to be really spunky and okay with it. And so sometimes I wonder, is it me? Am I coming off negative, oh, I was adopted? I don't know, maybe that was my fault. So when they're coming back and kind of being, sorry for me, maybe that's on me. But I also just kind of think too, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt and I'm like, you can see their gears in their brains really rolling. And so I'm like, is there anything you want to ask me? If you're curious about it, I'm here, you can ask me anything. And they're like, well, Are you sure you want to talk about it? And I'm like, yeah, just let me know. What is it? And so then I think that's kind of where, like you said, you kind of can turn the conversation around.
Yeah, and just kind of make it a lot more lighthearted than I guess they're maybe assuming that it is. Yeah, and sometimes I think too, we're kind of the oddballs out, to be honest, because when I'm
doing some research and I'm looking at Instagrams, adoption Instagrams and YouTubes and things like that, a lot of people feel really different about it than us. And, we're very grateful, very thankful. And some people just really hate it. They just wish they weren't adopted. They wish their birth moms and birth dads would have kept them within the family. And I think that's just another perspective of it too. So maybe they heard something.
I'd be very curious to know what their reasonings were behind that. Because, I think it's important to maybe their response to being adopted is different than mine, but I'm very, very interested in what they might have, what they have to say about that, because it's definitely just as important as mine is, and I think I just love to learn more about people who have perspectives like that and see how they go about their lives.
Yeah, because I think so many things come in to play with that, right? Maybe they had a difficult upbringing, and maybe their mom or dad wasn't as supportive, their adoptive parents weren't as supportive, or maybe they had a rough childhood somehow. So I guess that all plays into being adopted as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, just so you guys know, both of our adoption lives in our families weren't easy at all. There was definitely a lot of struggles that probably me and you both had to deal with, whether it maybe be from bullying or whether it maybe be from not fitting in, or but I guess what I'm trying to say is that we it wasn't all like rainbows and sunshines with us. It wasn't, I'm sure for me specifically, I came a long way from feeling the way that I feel now about adoption compared to how I did when I was a teenager compared to when I was a child. So it definitely took a lot of thinking to get to the place that I am in right now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that was all the questions that we have. If you guys have any questions about anything that we spoke about on this podcast, feel free to comment down below or reach out to us. And we're always open to answering questions on our social media platforms. Thank you again, and have a great day. Peace.